Hello everyone and welcome back to Let's Play Crash Bandicoot 3 Warped. In the last part, we beat the final boss, and now it's time for us to start going after the other collectible we've been seeing the entire game.
Crash, Coco, if you have already retrieved a levels crystal, then you will find a floating clock when you enter for the second time. This floating clock activates time trial mode. Grab it and the clock will start ticking. Race for the end to get the best time. But beware, some elements will change.
Now that cutscene technically played when I first revisited a level back in like tier 2 or 3, but I feel it was better to save it for right now, because now it's time for us to actually grab one of these yellow clocks. Upon grabbing that, you enter time trial mode, where certain boxes' content change, and your goal is just to get to the end of the level as soon as you can. I recommend waiting until after you've beaten Cortex to do this though, as the crash dash when you hold R2 makes running through these stages a lot faster. The big key thing to grab through these stages though, outside of Uka-Uka crates, is numbered crates. Certain crates now become yellow and have a red number on them, usually 1, 2, or 3. These pause the timer on the bottom right for that amount of time, and you can hit multiple of them in a row for increases or pauses of that subsequent amount of time. So, say right here when I hit these 3 1 crates, that becomes subsequently 3 seconds of pause. Some of the level varieties are much harder in time trial mode due to the lack of checkpoints within them. Others are easier just because of the straight up crash platforming levels. I'm going to be showing off one of every level variety just so you can get a good idea of what you have to do, or at least the level mechanics, like the swimming and the tigers and all that. With that said, the general rule is the same: hold R2 as long as you can, or whatever boost button you have, and don't try to stop, memorize box layouts. And there are 3 tiers of reward for this. The minimum you need to get the true ending is a Sapphire Relic. But if you do slightly better than that time, you get a Gold Relic, which if you get all of those, you get a special reward. And then there's the Platinum Relics, which are more or less just bragging rights, and I think in dev times in certain regards. I don't like the time trials, I'll be real. I think they needlessly pad out the game, because you need to get a lot of the relics in order to access the final tier of levels. In order to access every level in the game, you need at least 20, I think 25 actually, just outright. So you need to get a gold, at least a Sapphire Relic in all of them. With that said, let's go over all the times that I need here on the NSTCU/Japanese version of the PlayStation 1 version to get the gold relics. For instance, back in Toad Village, you need 56 seconds 52 hundredths to get a gold relic. Here in Under Pressure, I'm going to need a minute 1792. In Orient Express, you're going to need 27.8 seconds. In Boneyard, you're going to need a minute 38.20. Making Waves, you're going to need 58.20. Gee Whiz, you're going to need a minute 21.72. Hang 'em High, you're going to need 51.64. Hog Ride, you're going to need 41.44. Tomb Time, you're going to need a minute 9 flat, or better, of course. Midnight Run, you're going to need 38 seconds, 20 hundredths. Dynamite, you're going to need a minute 24.76. Deep Trouble, you're going to need a minute 25.16. High Time, you're going to need a minute 4.12. Road Crash, you're going to need a minute 20.7. Double Header, you're going to need a minute 20... Oh, wait, no, that's the NSTC time. Why did that randomly switch there? Huh. By the way, Double Header, you're going to need a minute 21.13. Sphinx Air, you're going to need a minute 22.63. Bye-bye Blimps, you're going to need 58.4 seconds. Tell No Tales, you're going to need a minute 25.63. Future Frenzy, you're going to need a minute 34 flat. Tomb Waiter, you're going to need a minute 45.03, I think. Gone Tomorrow, you're going to need a minute 25.60. Orange Asphalt, you're going to need a minute 31.30. Flaming Passion, you're going to need a minute 13.10. Mad Bombers, you're going to need a minute 55.23. And finally, Bug Light, you're going to need a minute 34.86. There are some notable exceptions to this, as boss fights don't have speedruns, so you don't just need to do the main levels. And you, again, in order to beat the game, you just need to beat the Sapphire Time, which, if you check the level, is just the time you see first. And generally, I find those to be pretty easy times to beat. It's just when you're going for the final hidden gem in the game where you need all gold relics that things get a bit annoying. Either way, since I completely skipped over Under Pressure's mechanic, what you're going to want to do for that level type is to just mash the X button as hard as you can and spin past as many enemies as you can. Take cheap hits if you have to. Here in the Tiger stages, you're going to need to hold the boost down button down something fierce. Don't be like me on my first take of this level where I'm mashing it more than anything, but if you hold it down, you get a much better speed boost, and that allows you to just soar through the level. Time trials, I'm never a fan when they're required to get everything in the game. Even when it's just for like a trophy, like I don't like that the Uncharted games do that. I don't like that Shovel Knight does that, because that was probably one of the most annoying playthroughs of that game I had to do. And I'm someone who had the dumb idea to stack New Game Plus, Deathless, and destroy all checkpoints on one playthrough. You know, not dying on the mode where you take double damage. But ultimately, in Crash 3, they're generally fine, because you just need the Sapphire Relic. With that said, I still think this comes across as needless padding. And I know people say Crash 3 is bigger than Crash 2. And yes, it is, technically. I think there are still more original levels in Crash 3 than there was in Crash 2. At least in terms of original level concepts. But this pads out to a point where I feel like some people say it's bigger just because they're remembering this is a part of the game. And I don't like this part of the game. It's such an active part of completion that it comes across as tedious to me, to be frank. Although I will say the jet ski levels are probably at their best in the speedrun / time trial, just because you don't need to lollygag just looking for crates. You just need to remember which way is the right way, follow the arrow, and grab any timer boxes you see along the way. So hey, these levels are actively improved, which is impressive. But that said, there are still some relics I haven't mentioned, and that's because there are levels we straight up have not accessed yet. The moment you've gotten 5 relics or more, you can check the center platform in the Time Twister, or whatever the hell the name is of the machine we're in, and you'll find a platform you can jump onto to reach a new tier of levels. Some of them are just alternate entrances to levels we've been to before. Some of them are completely original. I'll show them off as we get there. And there's also just straight up 2 levels I haven't shown off yet that we've technically had access to for a while. We actually don't have access to one now that I think about it, but we've definitely had access to the other. And that's because I'm technically taking them on in stage numerical order. The Crash Insane Trilogy would later add these types of challenges retroactively back into Crash 1 and 2. And honestly, I don't like them there either. In fact, I just like them more there than I do here, because Crash 3's levels are built around the power-ups and therefore around the Crash Dash, so you can speed through levels at a healthy rate, and the game feels like it's designed like you're meant to do this. Crash 1's levels are not designed to be speed run through in any regard, partially just due to the length, partially due to the cruelty of the level hazards within them. And because of that, getting the All Gold Relics trophy in Crash Insane Trilogy Remake was annoying for Crash 1, and in Crash 2... I feel it's a little bit better, partially because you just have the slide and you're going to be spamming that, let me tell you what. If you're getting the gold relics in that. But again, the levels just aren't designed well around it, I feel, especially the sewer type levels or any level you have to climb in. Hell, I remember I got so focused when doing the Insane Trilogy gold relics for Crash 2 in specific on the screen, and when I looked around it, away from it, the world around me started warping, like my eyes were trying to readjust to not looking at a single thing for so long. That was scary. Oh, also, a thing you should do for the time trials in the motorcycle stages is wait about a minute, because then the lab assistants will be completely out of your way by the time you get to the end. So you can just let them finish, and you can get the time trial relic without having to worry about bumping into them, at least. Yeah, these did become a mainstay, and I think they did implement it a little bit better in future games, and by a little bit better, I mean, or at least used to them by that point, because, again, I just don't like time trials as an actual integrated part of beating a game, or at least getting the true ending in a game. I guess now that I think about it, I'm a little more okay with it being, like, for optional stuff, like galleries, or even trophies to an extent, but I still would rather prefer they don't make that an element of the game in any regard, because I don't think I'll ever get the Uncharted Platinums, for instance, because they require speedrunning the game. And they are not easy games to speedrun due to enemy AIs being obnoxious at times. I say remembering that those are also Naughty Dog games, so... Does Naughty Dog just like you speedrunning their games, now that I think about it? Not sure how I feel about that. Did The Last of Us have that? I can't remember. Alright, now let's head into our next level of variety. I believe now we're heading into the Blimp Stages are probably the most straightforward. Because once you hit the clock, it's just a game of hit any box you see along the way, because I think there are a couple of freezes, and then just gun it for whichever enemy is around you. It's more so finding the proper route of which blimps and biplanes are close to each other in a way that you can just move from one to the next without having too much downtime, I guess is the best way to describe it. But yeah, I don't like this. With that said, as you may have noticed, because I've been jumping around, I am mostly cutting this process of getting the gold and sapphire relics out, as I feel it would just be you watching me fail the same levels over and over again. I'll just show off one of every level variety so you get an idea of what you have to do, and then figure it out from there. I mean, I guess technically speaking, I didn't show off any of the dynamite levels, which are the chase levels, but those are just the behind-the-back crash levels from the front. So it's the same general principle, is my mentality with which levels I'm showing off here. Thankfully, I believe this is the last level variety, so now we can actually get on to new stuff. Now, I'll be real, in recording this, I did get quite a few more gold relics than I was expecting on my first run, and even some platinum relics I wasn't expecting. Mind you, I'm also used to the Insane Trilogy, which has a worse hitbox, and I think slightly stricter times, depending. Might be stricter, might be less strict, I honestly can't remember. But now, let's show off something that we can do. Since we now have 25 relics, we can jump on this platform like I mentioned a few moments ago, and it'll take us to the hidden tier, Tier 6. And here are levels, technically 26 through 30, but some of these, namely, I believe, 27 and 29, are just entrances to levels we've already been to before, Future Frenzy and Hang 'em High. And because of this, we now have a lot more gems we can get, and even some more relics, so now let's go into Ski Crazed. Alright, so Ski Crazed is another relatively long jet ski level. And something I'm also not showing off for these levels is any new levels you get after getting relics also have their own relics. So once I beat all these levels, I'm generally going to go right back through them again and get their respective gold relics. With that said, if you need the gold relic for Ski Crazed, here on the NSTCUJ PS1 version, it is 50.5 seconds flat, or better. Thankfully, I feel this level puts enough boxes in a row that as long as you're gunning it, you're gonna hit all the ones you need to in order. Though this is probably one of the most hard parts of the speedrun right here. This little turn here, these boxes I believe are both like 2 or 3 second boxes. And that's a surprisingly precise turn to make when you're trying to move fast. And I feel like it's a turn again. I feel like I had a better job hitting in the, or at least an easier time hitting in the Insane Trilogy, because again, I honestly felt the Insane Trilogy controls were a little bit better for this mechanic set. And people are just too used to the old controls, was the way I always looked at it. I mean, don't get me wrong, I played this game a little bit growing up, but again, I basically only rented it from a Blockbuster, maybe borrowed it from a friend every now and then, so this was not a game I grew up playing as much as Crash 1. And hell, I think whenever I rented games from like the local Blockbuster, I got Crash 2 more often, because even back then, I didn't like the time trial stuff, so I just wasn't having as much fun with Crash 3 as I was Crash 2. Don't get me wrong, I still died a lot in both and got stuck frequently like I did Crash 1, but even then, not as often as Crash 1, because Crash 1's level design is dicks. With that said, I do like this level, at least from the aesthetic point of view, because I always love it when levels are set at sunset, and I love the way they make the sun reflect off the water here. again, as I mentioned back in, like, Tomb Raider, Crash 3 for PlayStation 1 has some great-looking water. Even if at times it also kind of looks like that weird reflective material that kind of used for certain, like, 1980s quote-unquote styled jackets and hats for some reason. The kind of weird glittery foil look. It's not actually foil. I don't even know what kind of material it is. I'm not a fashion designer, nor do I know too much about fashion. I'm someone who usually wears a t-shirt, jeans, and my jacket, and that's it. Because I don't like varying up my fashion too much. I have a couple of different jackets, but they're almost all the same kind of olive drab green for some reason. And I usually wear t-shirts and long sleeves, and that's it. I don't own a single pair of shorts now that I think about it. This has been Fashion with Kyle. I will say, compared to some of the other levels of this variety, I also think this is a bit more interesting at the same time. Because first off, I feel there's hazards more directly in your way, meaning you have to plan ahead a bit more. But I also think out of the 3 levels we've seen in this variety thus far, I think it's 3, this might be 4 already actually, now that I think about it. I actually can't remember. That this is probably the most straightforward one because of how they place the boxes. There's no, like, second path off to the right that has a ship that you can drive all the way around to get like 3 or 4 extra boxes like the second level this type did. Oh, and yeah, here we see what I mentioned back, I believe, in the first ski level, back when we were first doing it. Sometimes the way the waves generate around the ramps can cause you and your speed to completely go off the charts and miss boxes. Like, I believe I just missed another one there. Yes, I did. Yeah, the hitboxes for boxes in midair like this can be a little bit iffy. It's like landing with the motorcycle during the hog ride stage. Sometimes the hitboxes just don't line up. Sometimes it just doesn't work. With that, though, we are, I believe, at the end of this stage. Once we grab these last 2 boxes, I believe it's just over those last few ramps, and we are there? Although this level also brings into account one thing I haven't mentioned yet. If you hold left or right when you go off a ramp, you do this little spin trick, and they want you to do that in a couple of cases in order to hit 2 boxes at once. With that said, I don't, because I feel like I'll lose control and just go right into a nitro crate with my luck. But now we've started off tier 6, but I'm also going to have to end off this part. Thank you guys for watching, and in part 10, more of this stuff. See you guys then.